feeling dimensions and bodily sensation maps. So tonight we're going to talk about feeling categories, um, feeling dimensions, neural mechanism, feeling space, and something very, very interesting called bodily sensation maps. It's a fascinating neuroscience. So, feeling categories. Emotions and emotion theories, a lot of people are very familiar with it. And just because we all have emotions, I think is that either good or bad. And we have positive emotion and negative emotions, and that's that. So we got that covered. But feeling encompasses a broader spectrum of subjective experiences that can be categorized into five distinct groups, five groups. And those feelings are made of positive emotion, negative emotions, we're already familiar with us. Also, cognitive processes. Feeling is also a cognitive process, not just an emotion. Then number 4 is somatic states, and number 5, homeostatic states. Some of the words are quite fancy words, but it's very good to become aware of this and learn the difference between them. Positive emotions and negative emotions, we all already had those. We know what they are. But feeling as a cognitive process, it's a bit more interesting because we don't think of a cognitive process to be a feeling, but it is a feeling, right? Because the cognitive processes involve the mental activities and thought patterns. Oh, do I like this word? Thought patterns that contribute to our emotional experiences. Without thoughts, we would probably not have emotions. Some people would say, right? We can debate this. We can debate this for many hours. And in the cognitive processes of a feeling category, we have feelings such as hope, anticipation, curiosity, surprise, and awe. It's like some beautiful feelings, yeah. In a somatic states of feeling dimensions, feeling categories, I'm sorry, a somatic state refers to a bodily sensation and physiological changes that accompany certain emotions. Yes. So it's very important to feel the positive emotion and to feel those negative emotions as little as possible, because it does affect our physiological changes and bodily sensations. And these feelings include sensations such as warmth, tingling, tension, or a butterfly in the stomach. And somatic states can provide important cues and feedback about our emotional experiences that help us recognize and interpret our feelings. And this can be very, very complex. Well, that's why you have so many different types of therapy, because this can be very, very complex. And then we have homeostatic states. Now, homeostatic states are related to our physiological needs and internal regulation. And these feelings include hunger, thirst, fatigue, pain, and so on. And this may not, while they may not be traditionally considered emotion, they are part of our subjective experience and can influence our overall state of being. And we talked about subjective experiences a while back, right? So feeling dimension is another interesting topic. There can be more than a 3-dimension that I capture here, but feeling dimensions are an essential framework for understanding and categorizing the complex landscape of human emotions. And these dimensions allow us to differentiate and describe the wide array of subjective experience and encompass feelings, subjective experiences, right? And the researcher proposed various feeling dimensions, each capturing distinct aspects of emotional experiences. And mind you that earlier we had somatic and we had homeostatic states, which they don't necessarily include an emotion, right? Now, feeling a dimension, researchers have identified these 3 important dimensions: valence, arousal, and dominance. Yeah. So valence as a feeling dimension refers to the positive or negative quality of an emotional experience, and it represents the overall pleasantness or unpleasantness of a feeling. Emotions on the positive end of the valence spectrum, such as joy, happiness, love, are associated with feelings of well-being and satisfaction. And on the negative end of the valence, emotions like fear, sadness, and anger are characterized by discomfort and distress. Feeling dimension. Now, the second feeling dimension would be arousal. And arousal reflects to the level of physiological and psychological activation or energy associated with an emotion. So some emotion can have low arousal, such as relaxation and calmness, and some can have a high arousal, such as excitement or intense fear. And what's interesting is that excitement can be both positive and negative. It's a different level of arousal as a feeling dimension. Dominance, on the other hand, refers to the perceived level of control or power associated with an emotion. Perceived level of control or power associated with an emotion. And it represents the extent to which an emotion makes an individual feel in control or feels submissive in a given situation. That's a feeling dimension, right? Now, these feeling dimensions are not independent, but they interact with each other to create a multi-dimensional space that captures the complexity of human emotions. I particularly like the word multi-dimensional. And these feeling dimensions have practical implication in the fields like psychology, psychiatry, and emotional well-being. They provide a language for clinicians and therapists to communicate and conceptualize emotions. And by considering the valence, arousal, and dominance dimensions, professionals can gain a deeper understanding of their clients' emotional experiences. They can identify patterns and tailor interventions accordingly. So I will take this even further with my clients, and I would explain to them, I would educate my clients over these different types of feeling categories and feeling dimension, because I believe it's very, very interesting. On the next page, we have feeling space. Feeling space. Feelings are complicated, right? Right? Feelings are complicated. So feeling space, which is similar to a type of emotion work, is best explained by these 3 features: mental experiences, bodily sensation, and emotionality. Right? Now, feeling space represents the arrangement of feelings within a multidimensional space. Mm-hmm. It is multidimensional because feelings have dimension, emotions have dimension. And feeling space provide a graphical representation of how different feelings relate to one another based on their proximity and similarity. This is fascinating to me to talk about it because just in a little bit we're going to talk about bodily sensation maps. Really, really cool neuroscience. So when it comes to feeling space, by mapping out a feeling space, a researcher can uncover patterns, relationships, and clusters of emotions, offering a deeper understanding of their interconnection. Mm-hmm. Now, four different spaces of four different categories of feeling space are proximity and similarity, emotional balance and feeling space, complex emotional state, and individual and cultural differences. Cultural differences is quite an interesting topic to discuss and bring over. And we talked about cultural differences often enough because it matters what culture we grew up in or what culture we currently reside in, so we can because feeling space is not a fixed structure, and it varies across individuals and cultures. And some cultures may have a completely different type of feeling space than others, right? And different individuals may have distinct patterns of emotion clustering with their personal feeling space based on their unique emotional experiences and personality traits. Now, cultural factors can influence the organization and representation of emotions within feeling space. And for example, culture that value collectivism, collaboration, they may show different clusters of emotion compared to cultures that prioritize individualism. That's that's interesting because I grew up in a culture that valued collectivism and cooperation, and now I reside in a culture that prioritizes individualism. So I had to become familiar with both of these spaces. So here's Randy right back. Internet kicked him out and he is back with us. All right. Those things happen. Technology is quite interesting. So, Randy, I was just saying that it's very interesting because I often talk about me growing up in a culture that valued collectivism, but now I reside in a culture that prioritizes individualism. So for me, it comes rather easier to look at both ends of the spectrum and understand and build the bridge in between, as I'm dealing with a lot of bilingual clients, not just Romanians, but other clients too, that they've grown up in a culture other than the American culture. For me, it's easy to have them understand some of the values from the American culture that becomes in conflict with their old values. And as soon as I get into that feeling space, or I get them to get into that feeling space, like light bulbs go on. It's like, doop, doop. It's like, oh wow, I didn't think about it. Well, no, of course not. So it's very, very interesting. But if we go to the next page, neural mechanism, I'm going to skip. We're going to talk about the bodily sensation map. This is just fascinating because I'm still working on my fearfulness book. And as I went, the first two books that I wrote, I didn't write them out off of research. But this book needs to have a lot of research incorporated into it because of many reasons. So when I just came across bodily sensation maps to find that that is illustrated by science, is measured, illustrated by science, I went, aha, I knew it all along because I did know it all along. I'm writing the book on fearfulness, and I am teaching people how to identify what they feel, and to I help them to locate their feeling in certain geographical areas of the body. And here it is science with right here with this maps. Look at this. It's fascinating. I mean, there's more maps than this, but it's fascinating. So bodily sensation maps are also known as somatosensory maps. They are a fascinating aspect of the neuroscience of feelings. I love neuroscience. I have emails coming in my inbox, about 20 emails a day that have to do with neuroscience. And these body sensation maps, they illustrate the regions of the body that correspond to specific emotions. It's fascinating, and highlights the intimate connection between bodily sensation and emotional experiences. And they provide valuable insight into how our physical sensation contribute to generating states of being. Yeah, this is what I'm teaching. Feel a feeling by choice so you can generate a state of being. And feelings are extremely important, and feelings are not important just to the extent to which they are emotions and to the extent that we learn to manage emotion, because that's not all there is to it. Feelings begin with awareness, and when throughout, I have a stampede of sentences again. So let me choose the sentence to go further. So with fearfulness, I teach my clients a lot of different techniques for identifying states of being that they are generating unconsciously. Because if we identify states of being that we're generating unconsciously, then we'll learn to generate states of being consciously. And that is a tremendous skills to develop, and it's quite a personal power to have. These body sensation maps, there are like 4 categories researchers have identified thus far: embodied emotions, specific sensations and emotions, somatic markers, and individual and cultural variations. And let me go to the most interesting part of this body sensation map, and right here. Right, the researchers have been able to identify more than the 6 states, but for the purpose of the presentation tonight, I chose this particular 6 states to present. And if you look at measurement tool on the right, from -15 to +15, from light blue to yellow. And if you look at where in the body the fear is sensed, it's felt, where anxiety, anger are felt, you can see that they're quite different, right? And if you look, now I gotta get somewhere with this. And if you look at the anxiety kind of takes over your entire stomach, doesn't it? It's a lot of people that have high anxiety are prone to high anxiety. They're also prone to a lot of GERD or IBS or any sort of digestive issues associated with that anxiety. But look at the anger. And I have a very good explanation that satisfies my curiosity of why anger, it fills your body from the diaphragm up, the head, and the hands. You see how anger floods your head and hands with sensation. And why the reason for that would be to defend yourself in case of danger. You need to be angry, not just fear, not just be in fear mode, but you need to be angry enough to defend yourself or to run or to either run away from the bear, or you're not going to get in a fight with a bear, but if there is another human attacking you, you might get in a fight with a human, and you need to be in anger. And then look at everything from the diaphragm up. It's so activated. And also a little bit on the feet. You need to run. I find this fascinating, right? And anxiety, look at the anxiety. It's not so much activation in the head. It's more in your gut. It's more in your stomach. Mm-hmm. And the fear has some sort of activation in the head, but not as much as anger. Mm-hmm. So now let's look at the positive ones. The positive ones are happiness, love, and pride. Look at happiness. Happiness activates all of your body. All of us, you're all activated. It's a beautiful, beautiful map. All of your molecules are dancing with joy, being activated in above zero, it all red, orangey, yellow. And look at the head. The head is all nice and clear. There is a zero cloud in the head when you're happy. That's not how the researcher interpreted, but it's a good way to put it this way also, right? And then look at love. Love, see how it's activated from your thighs up. It's a big portion of your body that love just spreads all those oxytocins and dopamine neurotransmitters, and your molecules are dancing with joy. But it affects the way it activates in a head. It's a little different than happiness. Mm-hmm. And then look at pride. Pride, pride is the feeling of being, has a little bit to do with a little bit of confidence. Like, this is who I am. I'm confident. I'm proud of myself. Not the negative type of a proud. But what I'm finding interesting is that if you look at pride and if you look at anger, they're quite similar, aren't they? So when we learn to differentiate of how in the body anger feels like and how in the body pride feels like, we can better engage with the environment at the moment. because most of the arguments and most of the conflicts that arises between people have to do with people's prides, have to do with people's sense of themselves, the sense of self. This is who I am. And then when people feel devalued, they get angry. But there is such a similarity of where in the body you feel the pride and where in the body you feel the anger, right? So I find this fascinating. Neuroscience fascinates me. So this is what I'm doing with fearfulness. Thank you, neuroscience. You created this map. And this study was done over a long time with a few thousand participants. Mm-hmm. And these participants were they were provided with words that would depict, well, they would ignite their senses. And when they were in, what it's interesting about it, when they were given a story about a specific emotion, this is when the most amount of ignition of that particular feeling sensation in a body occurred. If it was just a word or just auditory, it would ignite to some degree. If they were presented with a visual input of that feeling of emotion, then there would be more of an ignition over their bodily sensation map. But when they were provided with a story, much more of their physical body would get involved. I'm finding it interesting. So now we can very easily understand why in hypnosis we use little stories to break away emotional attachments to places that we don't need to have emotional attachment at this stage in our life. So a little bitty story into the hypnotherapy can provide such great relief because it helps you release. I'm not so big on the stories as, I mean, for me, I'm fascinated by the information. I'm fascinated by knowledge. I'm fascinated by data. But most people are fascinated by stories. Wouldn't you say so, Randy?
Doubt. Absolutely. I'm hearing a strange noise. I'm going to step away for about 30 seconds. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Here's the funny noise. Be right back.
So those subjective feelings can further be categorized under, well, these dimensions of the feelings and the maps. They provide valuable insights into the neural and physiological foundation of emotions. And furthering your understanding of the complex nature of human emotional experiences. And furthermore, this shows the subjective feelings are categorical, emotional, and embodied. So when going further with this, we understand how complex the emotions are and how we can differentiate between emotions and feelings, and pay attention to the bodily sensation and begin to understand our own bodily sensation map, because based on research over a few thousand people, these are the maps that have been identified. But everybody, because feelings are subjective, everybody will have their own bodily sensation map, and they will have their own feeling dimensions and feeling space. And it becomes of such a great value and such an important tool to offer to clients and to people, to help them understand the differences between and what to do about it. And if nothing, if nothing from tonight, if we take only the fact that when we are angry about something and we have a conflict, we're upset with somebody, we're most likely angry about having our sense of self being insulted. And then we just have this feeling that instead of fully developing into anger, we can, to some degree, because anger is not required all the time. Anger, it's a natural emotion, feeling, arousal, which we need to experience in certain circumstances, but not all the circumstances. So once we can understand this, then we can say, oh, I'm a little bit angry, but maybe I'm not as much angry as I am more proud of myself, and I am aware that my sense of self has been insulted. And how about I continue to sit with my sense of self in my pride, my balanced pride, and not shift into anger? Wouldn't that be something, Randy?
What would be the goal?
Well, the goal would be to not react in anger. The goal would be to learn some tools to be able to differentiate between the feeling of pride of your sense of self and anger, and to be less reactive and more responsive, because we can respond as opposed to react. And I have been teaching this for how many years? And I'm so grateful that science finally came up with this and it made it available. And everybody now wants to know, where's the science? Where's your references? Well, here's the science. So this is going to be a really good portion in my Fearfulness book, which I'm still working on it, and it's coming out eventually.
You said respond.
Respond versus react.
Oh, what's the difference between responding and reacting?
Well, reacting it has very little choice in it. But responding, you add conscious choice, and you add emotional intelligence, and you add all of the tools and the tricks that you've learned through your personal development, to all of through so many, everything that you learned about yourself. And when you feel your pride attacked, you're gonna get angry. Stay in your pride, choosing to respond with a sense of self that has integrity, as opposed to reacting with anger. This would be just such a big deal. And a lot of people do that. And people that have a high emotional intelligence, they already do that. It's just piece of cake. It's like, no, I'm not going to get angry. I'm not going to respond in anger. I'm just communicating. This is communication. This is not an argument, right? This is again, it can be communications, and it's not an accusation. People with a lower level of emotional intelligence will perceive communication as an argument most of the time, and also perceive communication as an accusation often. So these are lower level of emotional intelligence. So then what's left for us with a higher emotional intelligence is to repeat our statements. And higher emotional intelligence knows to make the communication leaving the word you out. And then how do you communicate? Well, there's many other ways to communicate. And it can be quite delicious after you practice a little bit. Very satisfactory. And then you get more out of that communication. Yeah. Because if I look at this bodily sensation map, I would see that before we're into full-blown anger, we are going to experience fear, and we're going to experience anxiety together with it. But then you look at the map and you say, well, it's the same area that lights up under anger. It's the same area that lights up under pride, love, and happiness. And you go, oh, wow. How can I shift from that to that? There are tools. There are tremendous tools. It's called generating states of being with thought feeling practices. I've been teaching this for many years. It's fascinating. It's fascinating and it's doable. And I have a lot of feedback, a lot of testimonies on how well this worked. Because on this, when with this body sensation maps, this suggests that our physical sensation play a vital role in shaping our emotional experiences. I mean, imagine you not having any physical sensation. Would you have an emotion without a physical sensation? I don't know. Because emotions are not solely a product of mental processes, but are also influenced by the body's sensory input. But emotions are definitely begin with mental images. I mean, there's many different theories of emotion. But if you take your mental out of it, you're not likely to have much of an emotion, are you? Or if you are just staying in happy and in love, then the emotion you're going to have, it's happy and love and proud, being confident with who you are, then whatever everybody else would try to, whatever the outside, your environment, people close by, anything that's near you, in your circle, whatever happens in your circle, you're less likely to be pulled out of those positive feelings if you learn how to stay centered. Another way to label pride, like being proud of yourself, is being centered, staying in your center. Because specific sensation, specific bodily regions and sensation are associated with different emotions. And some of the area, look at pride and anger, it's quite similar except for the arms. Yeah. And sensation like warmth and expansion in a chest region may be linked to the feelings of joy or love, or sensation of a sinking feeling in the stomach or a heaviness in the limbs may be associated with sadness or grief. And this bodily sensation can be subjective experiences accompanying emotions, and these maps provide a means to explore and validate these connections. And they also come as somatic markers. This bodily sensation maps contribute to our understanding of somatic markers, which are bodily sensations that serve as cues for specific emotional states. Well, yeah, because oftentimes we're so emotional, which you completely out of your mind. Well, pretty much, yeah, you might just be out of your mind because you're so into of your emotion, right? And then you have to bring your thought a little bit. It's like, oh wow, I'm very emotional. Let's think through it to be a little less emotional. We don't want to suppress emotion. We want to transmute. We want to transform. Because these somatic markers, they influence our perception, our decision making, and memory recall. Like there are bodily sensations associated with fear, increased heart rate, and sweaty palms. This can act as a somatic marker that alert us to potential threats in the environment. Mm-hmm. And interesting enough that you might have all of this sensation arising out of food allergies. It's just food allergy, and it's not threat on the environment. It's just food. Well, hopefully it's not the type of anaphylactic type of an allergy. But once you've identified that you're allergic to a food that creates this kind of sensations, then you figure, okay, well, let's not have that food because I don't like the sensations I'm getting from that food. Wouldn't that be a wise choice, Randy?
Food that you're allergic to?
Yeah,
Yes,
there would be
wise choice.
definitely a wise choice, right? If you get an increased heart rate and sweaty palms and the sinking stomach and from a food you eat, I don't think that's pleasant. So then don't eat that food, or drink that liquid, or smoke those cigarettes, or inhale that other vapes, right? Some people like to have an increased heart rate, some people don't. So, yeah.
These maps measuring, Carmen, are they measuring? It looks like heat and coldness. Is that what they're?
Yes, as in a color code, yes, in a color code, you measure from the coldest of the color to the warmest of the color, and because it's easier to that's easier to recognize it, to see when you look at a two-dimensional picture. But when we feel it in our body, it's not as two-dimensional, but it's geographical. That is geography within the body. Which part of the body do you feel that feeling and that sensation? Yeah, because once we begin to understand this, we get to have some incredible power over it. Incredible power over it. We can do something with it. We can do something that it. Go ahead.
Sorry. Have they mapped
You breaking down. Your internet is not very friendly with you right now, and I think
other
you.
emotions like
All
sad?
right. So, okay, you're good now. So go ahead. Say now. Okay, now you're stuck again. Your internet is funny. So go ahead again with your question.
They done other emotions like sadness, despair, loneliness,
Yes. Yes.
shame.
Yes, they have. It's just that would be on this next page over here, but that's a bit too much talk about it tonight. And me and you, I'm going to present this to you privately at a later time. it's just a bit too much information. So right now, just looking at those 6 different bodily sensation map is sufficient for what we're doing right here, right now. We can, of course, go into much more depth in with all of the other ones, because it is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And just as feeling dimension and feeling space can vary across individuals and cultures, bodily sensation maps can also exhibit individual and cultural differences. Mm-hmm. And these specific bodily sensations associated with particular emotions can vary based on individual personal experiences, based on their cultural context, and even learned association. See, learned association. So this is where hypnosis, and this is usually your cue. It's usually you bring this up, but this is where hypnosis becomes so powerful and gets to the heart of the matter so quickly, because it troubles this learned association that are not beneficial, and then all of your subconscious goes, oh, I can unlearn that, or I can learn something new to place on top of what I've learned and how I associate it, or I can associate in a different way, and therefore I can be calmer and happy, more content. Well, yes, yeah. Which with hypnosis, we get to do that quicker and easier, as opposed to just talk therapy. Talk therapy is all cognitive, and it's helpful. Of course, it's helpful. Some people need to do more talk therapy than other people. I have clients that need to do a good amount of talk, and we talk through some things. But then we got to do a little bit of hypnosis, and then you just see leaps and bounds, and from 1 week to another. It's fascinating. It's beautiful, and of course it's fascinating. And the individual cultural evaluation is very, very important. And when you talk about culture, you think of it as the religion. Then religion is a culture, right? The color of the skin is a culture. What type of job are you working in, a corporate environment, or are you an entrepreneur? That's a different type of a culture. So all of this become so important. And I remember a client long ago. She came to me with something that had nothing to do with her work. She just wanted to work on her family life. And I kept asking her a question about her duties at work. And after 4 or 5 questions, she got aggravated, and she's like, oh, what's that got to do with? I said, well, that has a lot to do with your family work, because you make decisions, automatic decision, unconscious decision, based on the habits you develop at work, at your job. Then you take those habits and you bring it into your family life. It's like, oh, but yeah. And if at work, for example, you are tasked with making 50 decisions in 20 minutes, at home, that's not going to happen. And sometimes, sometimes you might be at home and say, we need to decide quick. And then your partner said, well, I kind of need to think about it. And then one that if you have the skill to make 50 decisions in a short amount of time, quickly, perfectly balanced decision, and you're going to be a bit frustrated with somebody that needs to take a little more time over that subject. And it's just a matter of habit. It's just a matter of you've done that, how many times you've done it. and now you're not patient with the others. So just bringing one little aspect, and this is just workplace, your job, and at home, at self, at work, at home, at work, at relationship, right? That's all. It has a great impact. So this bodily sensation map, they offer quite an important visual representation of the intricate relationship between bodily sensation and emotions. Well, no kidding. And they provide insights into the specific bodily regions and sensations that accompany different emotional states. Yes. I have been talking about this for many, many years, and I have taught every single of my student, every single of my client. I make an effort to teach them to recognize the direction of a feeling. Well, we work with emotions because they come see me because they have emotions. They don't like the emotions that they have, right? But then we begin to work on the feelings, and I have them feel a feeling by choice, something very simple, through the guidance, and then I have them recognize these feelings. They come with a shape and a direction and a movement. And it's interesting to see how the same, like this, the state of being capable comes with a very different direction. It's a similar bodily sensation map, but it has a different shape and different movement from person to person. And it's a very, very powerful tool. Very, very powerful tool.
This research is relatively new. I'm familiar.
This research is, how old is this research? Well, yes, it is. It is relatively new, Randy. This research is from 2018, 2013. It was published on 2013, and I was already teaching this bodily sensation maps in 20. I started teaching in 2011. Yeah, so they conducted their studies in 2013 that I can quickly take out of this. Yeah. But in 2003, we had R.W. Levinson in Blood, Sweat, and Fears talking about the autonomic architecture of emotions inside out. And then in 2000, we had Kovacic with Metaphor and Emotions, about language, culture, and body in human feeling. And of course, one of my favorite, William James, with his book, What is an Emotion? He talked about it in 1884. So this bodily sensation map is, yes, it's something rather recent. Fascinating, isn't it?
It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting stuff. I think that there was a time when that there was not that much emphasis on somaticism in the therapy world. I don't know about hypnosis world, but in the therapy world, it was not. There were people that had somaticized issues. In other words, they have physical problems that had no medical explanation, and there was that. But in terms of saying things like, um, where in your body do you feel that shame? That's that's relatively new. At least I haven't been in the therapy world 20 years, but 20 years ago that was not something that was at least the training that I had. It wasn't something that was predominant at all. I think it came from when trauma started becoming a hot new subject.
Mm-hmm.
There were physicians that became involved, like Dr. Vander. The body keeps score. If you get doctors involved, it's going to become some harder. They're going to focus on the physical, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of where it started. I think, but
Yeah.
but it just wasn't. It's interesting. It wasn't that predominant.
Yes, but it's becoming more and more important because there are so many rare diseases that come with all kinds of physical symptoms and sensation that um, it's important when somebody diagnoses somebody with depression. That's a very heavy diagnosis. And that's a diagnosis that will put a lot of stigma on a client. And it's possible that, for example, that person to experience a neuromuscular condition of a lot of weakness in the muscle where the neurotransmitters don't work, like more specifically acetylcholine in the muscle doesn't work properly, and that comes with a lot of muscle weakness and fatigue. And if you go to the doctor and tell the doctor that you feel tired all the time, I say, well, you're depressed. Well, I'm not finding anything in the blood, you're depressed. Well, there's more to it, right? And if someone has an inkling of a feeling that they know they're not depressed and they know it's not anxiety, even reflux and IBS, which are they can be really debilitating conditions. Even these, well, the number one cause, every doctor would immediately tell you that, you got to calm your anxiety down so your stomach will feel better. But even that, with some of this rare condition, neuromuscular condition that present with muscle weakness, can cause a lot of these symptoms. And recently, I just learned about something very, very rare, um, in which the autoimmune, and it's not triggered just by food or chemical substances or anything that you ingest. It deploys a lot of mast cells, and all of a sudden you are just flooded with a lot of antibodies or a lot of mast cells that cascades into all kinds of allergic type of chemical reaction within the body. And then you go to the emergency room and they say, well, there's nothing wrong with you. Well, yeah, things are wrong, and it's not just anxiety. It can just be a massive mast cell deployment. But in an emergency room, they are not running the blood test for that specific mast cell deployment. And even to get to a doctor to even to begin to talk about mast cell activation syndrome, it's going to take a lot of years. unless you're just dealing with a lot of anaphylactic and like really debilitating, like life-threatening. So there is so much complexity, not just to human emotions, but to human feelings and what we feel. I mean, the reason we go to doctors is because we don't feel good. The reason we go to a therapist is because we don't like what we feel. Yeah. So we want to change it. So for a great degree, yes, we can change a lot of things, and some things we're going to accept, and some things we're going to change, of course. And this study, it was submitted to Psychological and Cognitive Sciences by Lori Numenma, Enrico Galerian, Rita Hari, and Jari Heitinen. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, it's fascinating. So remember before we went live today, you were displaying a feeling about an experience you had. And when I asked you where,
the workshop, the online, the webinar.
yes, yeah, that thing, yeah. So when I asked you what parts of the body were you feeling this feeling, you mostly describe your head. Have you had a chance to look into it and observe, was that feeling presence in different areas of the body or just in your head?
It was just in my head. I didn't feel like I was going to throw up or anything. I could have made myself throw up. But just thinking about it, I guess I could have gotten sicker. But no, it was mostly too much thinking about something that was.
Okay, your internet, you're not having good internet today, Randy. Somehow your internet got stuck again. And we will see when your internet comes back, we will see you pretty soon. And that should do it for tonight. This was quite an interesting topic of conversation, and we will see you next week. All right.